Okay, so this girl that I work with, she comes to work and we're talking and we're like telling these like weird stories, about like high school and college and whatever. So I don't know how we got on this really weird subject, but she starts to tell us about when she was in college. Her and a couple of friends went to Miami for a spring break. So they're down there and they're having fun, blah, blah, blah. They're supposed to be there for like 4 days, I think. Anyway, one of her friends goes and meets this guy in, one of the bars. And she's, talking to him, making out with him. She likes him a lot. And, this guy's hitting her up, hey, come back to my place, stay for a few more days. Come back and hang out with me. I really like you, blah, blah, blah. She really liked this guy. So she goes back to her friends and she's like, hey, I met this guy. Let's stay for a few more days. And they're like, no, we gotta go back to school, they're telling her. So she goes back and she tells the guy, sorry, I can't stay, call me, I'll call you, blah. So they get back home and it was like, I don't know, a few days or a week or whatever later, this girl starts to like, she's breaking out and like all these sores and like blah, pus and crap all over her face. Big like welts and stuff like that, like around her mouth and her lips and stuff. And she's freaking out. She goes to the doctor and she's in there and the doctor's looking around and takes some samples and runs some tests and stuff like that. And he's like, this is awesome. So he leaves her in the room, says, I'll be back. And he comes back like 20, 30 minutes later with the cops. And, here's this poor girl sitting here in this, like, paper gown. And the cops come in and put handcuffs on her. And she's like, what the fuck? So they take her down to the station for questioning. They're like, just freaking out on her. And she's crying, like, what the hell's the problem? And they said, well, you tested positive for this, whatever disease it was. I don't know what the hell it was, but apparently you only get it if you are a cannibal, like eating people. It's some sort of like human to human, like thing, it only comes from eating human flesh, basically. And she's freaking out. She's like, what? I'm a college student and, I lived with my mom and, I haven't eaten anybody. So, so they're questioning her like, well, what have you been doing? Where have you been? Who have you talked to? And, she's like, nowhere, nothing, blah. And she says, well, there was this guy, I was on spring break a couple weeks ago and, I was making out with him and, he was a really cool guy. But that's like the only thing out of the ordinary that I've done. I haven't been anywhere else. I haven't been with anybody else. I haven't seen anybody else, yada, yada. So the cops need to investigate this because, as far as they know, she's been like chomping on people. Gross. So they get down to Miami and they look this guy up with the local police there, and they get to his house and they're checking things out, blah, blah, blah. And they find the half-eaten remains of 4 different women in his house, which basically she would have been numero 5. And yeah, so had she gone home with him, she would have been dinner. Gross. And so they arrest him. If this is true, then, gross. Either way, that's why you should not just be like all macking on, complete strangers. Know these people. Get to know them. You don't just need to be making out with whoever, whenever. Talk to them, hang out with them, schmooze around, get to know their friends, get to know their peeps. Don't just be like, oh yeah. And like, especially don't go to their house. Damn. And if you do, bring a posse, okay, with like weapons or something. I don't know. But, be careful because super creepy weirdos out there. I mean, this girl really liked this guy. And apparently he was like, Mr. Rico Suave, whatever. And literally she could have been eaten. It's bad. It's really bad. So, yeah. Watch your friends. Watch yourself. Watch who you're kissing. Anyway. So, of course, the investigative reporter in me decides to try and look this story up because I'm thinking this has got to be big news, right? I don't know what year it was. I'm not going to, I don't know this girl well enough to, read her diary. Okay. So, I'm looking it up on the internet. Of course, Google it. And I see a couple of, there's, a lot of cannibal stories, which is sad. Don't eat people. It's gross and demonic. Anyway, I see a bunch of cannibal stories, but nothing is quite matching up with the story that I was told. It's there was, parts, this matches this story, but this was in Guam. Just weird things like that. So anyway, I find this other website where it's urban legend stuff. And apparently, now there was a story that almost identically matched it. There was some other, weird little intricacies. I don't know. So maybe this was some sort of urban legend thing. Maybe my friend really believed that something like this occurred. Maybe her friend just told her crap. I don't know. Maybe they were the urban legend starters. I don't know. Maybe she was just telling me a tall tale. But apparently this story and similar stories have been floating around for a long time. I guess. I don't know. So whether it's true, whether it's not true, whether it happened to this girl, whether it happened to a different girl, doesn't really matter. The moral of the story is still the same. Try not to kiss killers, cannibals, ew, especially. It's just, watch out. Just watch out for this stuff. It's gross. You don't know. We live in a very psychotic world, so, be careful. Anyway, either way you slice it, this is a super creepy story. Had to tell it. Anyway, see you next time for Fact or Fiction.